It was good, y'all. It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man. Well, welcome into a not-so-fun edition of the KC Sports Authority podcast. JB, Spencer, and Keegan here with you. College basketball has been something of insanity this week with now 4 of the top 5 teams dropping in the last 48 hours, with, of course, the Kansas Jayhawks being the latest to do so in an ugly, embarrassing loss to UCF 65-60. We're going to kind of just give you our raw emotions from this, get in, get out. Leave some thoughts on the table, and then get out of here because we got a couple-day turnaround before it's back against another top Big 12 opponent in Oklahoma at home. So we got to get over this loss quick. But fellas, what a disappointing game. A game that started out slow, and then KU looked like they were just going to run away with it, jump out to a 35-19 lead. Transition game was on fire. We were running up and down the court. Defense looked great, forcing turnovers, and then it just all crippled and burned from there. Fought back throughout the second half, but not anything clean enough to get out of victory. I got a lot of thoughts on this game, but I'll start with you guys. Just first gut reaction, not just on the game, but where this team sits.
Look, I said it on Twitter, and I might have a friend or two that has the opinion that I might overreact whenever I go to KU Twitter and start firing off tweets. I don't care. This is not an overreaction. We suck. We suck on the road. We suck on the road, okay? We can't – I don't know what it is about this team, man. Like, we just – it's so frustrating because, you know, a game like – I think about a TCU game. You know, I was there. My wife and I were there. Energy was crazy. Very frustrating that we couldn't pull away ever in that game. Very much relief when we did win that game, but you didn't really feel too good about it, especially with the controversy around, and I hate using the word controversy, but controversy around that call, the flagrant call at the end of the game. But I think some of our struggles really haunted us in that game, carried over into this game. And we just, of course, started out totally flat. It was, 0-7. Bill Self calls a timeout in the first 2 minutes or whatever it was of the game. We go on a 7-0
might not even have been 2 minutes yet.
Yeah, might not even been 7, or might not even have been even 2 minutes in. We go on a 7-0 run. In fact, it was 9 or 12 points after, but they called a timeout in between all that. And yeah, like you said, we started to gain some momentum, and it looked like we were going to just run away with it. And this is what happens when Hunter Dickinson is in foul trouble, which luckily we haven't really had to deal with for a majority of the season. He is miraculously good at avoiding foul trouble, but man, we missed him, and we looked very vulnerable without him. So it didn't really help the cause, but against a team like UCF, we should have had that. And we should have not even – if Hunter Dickinson was sick, I still would have thought we win that game. It's pathetic that we lost that game. It honestly is pathetic. UCF is not as good as even anybody that I think we've faced pretty much all season, and outside of, any of the really, really early opponents. They're just awful. And to play that poorly against them, to play that poorly against Indiana – earlier in the season, that's why I fired off my controversial tweet of we suck on the road. This is the worst Bill Self team ever on the road, hands down, that I've ever seen. Worst Bill Self team on the road. I don't care if it's a small sample size. Worst Bill Self team on the road, and you picked a heck of a year to even have that, because you have 2 of the best players in the entire country, but you suck on the road. I'm sorry, rant over. But
JB is not happy tonight, guys.
I'm not.
Spencer, what's your thoughts?
Well, let me be the angel on the shoulder of KU fans real quick. I will point out we did win in Indiana, so that was a good
So
that
what?
was a good game. We didn't play well. We did come out with the win. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously today kind of sucked. But the good news is, in my opinion, it's fixable. So the thing that I would notice is that we got out to that early lead. We did a lot of damage in transition, and then we completely moved away from it. That zone, opposing coaches will be looking at film because that zone dismantled our offense, completely
It always
dismantled.
does. Zone
Always
always
does.
destroys us. I don't know what it is about Bill Self. Sorry to interject.
No, no, you're good.
Bill Self, I don't know what the deal is. We can't play against zone. We haven't been able to play against zone this year. We haven't been able to play against zone last year or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Doesn't matter. We've never been able to play against zone. I'm so annoyed.
They're not that bad. Typically, the running guy on the baseline, KJ, gets his athleticism, and we've seen that. It wasn't working tonight because give UCF credit. UCF is a very good defensive team. That was something I know we didn't talk about this game specifically before, but coming into this game, UCF is a very solid defensive team. They're extremely athletic. They get out and run. They've got 2 guys that are like top 10 in the nation in blocks, and that was very evident. We saw Hunter struggle against another guy with length and athleticism. Basically kept him out of the paint all night. So we knew that was going to be a struggle. I credit them the way they ran their zone because you couldn't really find a spot over that length. I mean, DeJuan tried to chuck up a 3 and just got stuffed. And I know we'll get into this, but this roster construction it's a good team. Against the zone, you don't have the shooters and you don't have 2 guards that are willing to attack the paint in El Marco and DeJuan to get things moving. So if KJ's not gonna get the look there and he can't get open, then yeah, we look stagnant, and then you have to help Kevin goes out. But yeah, Spencer, I'm sorry, yeah, keep going on.
No, I mean really, yeah, that's what I was going to really point out. I mean, the problem with the zone is they had so much length that we couldn't get it to KJ or Hunter in the middle. That's how you beat zone. You beat it from inside and out. And the only spots they gave us were about 12 feet from the side of the basket. You saw Devon hit a little runner. You saw KJ hit a little runner. Hunter hitting a little 15-footer there on the side, and those are obviously not efficient shots, and you're not going to win the game that way. So I think it's number one, Self and the coaching staff, they need to draw up a couple more plays that can kind of beat the zone. Because you're right, we don't have the shooters to naturally beat it. I mean, they're not going to close out as hard on our shooters, so it's not going to open up the middle as easy as it would. The other thing is we got to take care of the freaking ball. Like I've been hyping up Kevin all season, deservedly so. He's an All-American. He's averaging 2.5 turnovers a game, and he had 5
turnovers.
He needs to take care of the ball. DeJuan needs to take care of the ball. I understand that when you have 2 primary ball handlers and their usage rate is off the charts with the ball in their hands, I get it. You're going to turn the ball over, but these were just they weren't forced turnovers. They weren't forced because the defense was playing well. They were just bad turnovers. And really the last part is, I'm sure this will segue into the next topic here, but you're starting to see the rotation kind of make its way at this point. Furphy played well in the first half, had a little bit of a slow second half, missed a couple of box outs, which I saw KJ get mad at, which was funny.
Yeah.
But man, Timberlake and El Marco are like borderline unplayable right now.
Shoot, and Timberlake even had a 4-minute stretch where he was aggressive. He was on the ball defensively. He gets that tie up there. He gets a nice,
which was not a
transition.
But
yeah,
exactly.
I never saw them clarify. Did they clarify that as a jump ball? Because I was over here like, how's that not a jump ball? He stripped it.
They called a foul on Timberlake. Maybe it was a technical.
I don't know. I
know
they
got
a
technical either.
For it. Here's the thing. I love that you said that about Nick, because he's slowly. I'm scared to say this because he has a semi-decent game and then he probably has a bad game right after. But I think he had a semi-decent game. I was happy with him. One of the things I tweeted out that I wasn't alone in, and I was saying, like, get El Marco out of this game. Like, what are we doing? El Marco, okay, he had, what was it? It was like 2 games ago or whatever. He had I want to say 12-point game. Like, everyone was like, wow, El Marco, like, best game of the season, and he's El Marco's here, and everyone was so amped up and so excited for El Marco Jackson. You know what I've seen from him since then? When I was at the TCU game, bro, when I was at that TCU game, when I tell you every single time that TCU had El Marco one-on-one in an ISO, he gave up a layup every single time. And I was yelling at just the top of my lungs to get him out of the game. Bill Self probably didn't hear me. I was at the top of the stands because I paid for really cheap seats. Don't care. But I was so upset because it was that TCU game was close for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons was because El Marco couldn't guard anybody to save his life. And guess what? Same story tonight against UCF. And this time it got the better of us. He's not the only reason why we lost tonight, but man.
Well, and what's crazy about El Marco, I mean, he right now, if we're being honest, he offers absolutely nothing offensively on this team.
Right.
You have a zone defense you're going up against, and your two guards in the backcourt do absolutely nothing offensively. DeJuan, again, had one of his worst games of the season, which is continuously starting to show up as a problem that if he's not getting going, then we struggle. But the crazy thing about El Marco, yes, he's a bad, I think, ISO defender. Not terrible. I mean, he's got the skill set for it. He's still learning the pace of the game. But he's a pretty good secondary rotational. Like,
he's a good help defender.
Even in this game, he's a good help defender. He had a couple deflections and swipes today that led to turnovers. But yeah, I mean, right now he's not offering anything, and you can't. I mean, to me, there's a lot of headlines in this game. You can't have 18 turnovers. KU now has 18 turnovers in back-to-back games. Don't know how they pulled off the UCF win, considering they gave up 22 points off of those turnovers. No, I'm talking about, TCU game, yeah. And then of course tonight, 18 turnovers again. So you can't win when you turn the ball over, and you can't have your starting backcourt have 5 turnovers and 5 points on 2 of 8 shooting. El Marco doesn't even take a shot. DeJuan forced a couple really ugly ones, goes 0 for 3. So that's the big storyline there is turnovers, which we've obviously seen. If KU doesn't take care of the ball this year, they're in for a struggle. Now, give other teams credit. I think, like we said before, anytime KU goes somewhere on the road, it's that team's biggest game on the schedule. It's the same thing like what's happening with the Chiefs right now. When the Chiefs go on the road, it's that team's Super Bowl, and they just play up a whole nother level. UCF is not supposed to be a good team. They're not. They're supposed to be a bottom of the conference this year. They have a good coach. I do like Johnny Dawkins. I think he's a great coach. I've seen him have a couple of huge games here and there. We all remember what happened last year. I think it was last year? Last year, 2 years ago, they had their big win in the tournament. But not a very good team. Played above their level, I think. Defensively, they were solid, but that was the main thing. Second thing, though, is like I said, you can't have your starting backcourt only give you 5 points. On a night where Hunter doesn't even get 10 shots up and he's averaging 13.5, and Kevin had to really try to force a couple things here and there, the offense wasn't coming at a premium. And then even the second half, they completely took KJ out of the game, essentially, and he offered nothing. KJ had a pretty solid first half. He was a monster. Second, I mean, somebody else tweeted it. Outside of Andrew Wiggins and Ben McLemore, he might be the most explosive athlete KU's had in the Bill Self era, and he's probably got one of the quickest first leaps, which is crazy, going from a Jalen Wilson at the 4 who had no hops and no explosiveness to KJ probably being the most explosive. But yeah, the backcourt offered you absolutely nothing offensively, and you can't do that. If you have 2 guys that the defense can basically take out of consideration in the play, they're playing 5-on-3 at that point. And this was a game where bench production was actually decent. You get 17 points from the bench, most of that in the first half when Hunter had to go out and El Marco came out immediately and Furphy had his good stretch there. But I think I'll just, in general, all of the things we've talked about coming into the season, coming into Big 12 play, recapping the first half of the season, all the things we were worried about KU's struggles all showed up tonight. I mean, we said if KU's not shooting the 3 very, very well, they're going to struggle. Now they go 6 of 18, but if you look at Furphy, Timberlake, and Harris, they go 1 of 8. 1 of 8 from 3 from those 3 combined, and you can't have that. If Kevin's the only guy hitting threes, then he's the only one that should be taking threes. DeJuan couldn't hit his open threes, forced up an ugly 3. So to me, this was just one where all the things they do poorly showed up all at the same time. Because if you're looking at the box score and team stats, KU still outplayed them in most other categories. They shot 51% from the floor, better than UCF. They out-rebounded UCF by 4. They had more assists. They had, and then that more points in the paint. But then you see the turnover discrepancy there. They still forced a lot of turnovers and did pretty well there, but those 7 blocks led to other possessions that KU just, again, we saw them struggle against the athleticism of a big time athletic team, and just all the things they do poorly showed up in that last 25-minute stretch of the game, and it just became too much to overcome. And it doesn't even, I mean, we said the Big 12 was going to be a gauntlet. We didn't think that this was going to be the gotcha game so early that we talked about in our last episode as far as where that game might come. But the gotcha game, I guess the good news is, maybe, if you want to have a silver lining or a positive outlook, is maybe the gotcha game is out of the way now and they refocus, because they have another big test this weekend with Oklahoma coming in. Oklahoma's a top 10 team, very well coached. We know they're going to be tough. They're playing TCU right now, who played us really tough. So it doesn't get any easier, but maybe that gotcha game is out of the way. Because the rest of the Big 12 is going to be gauntlet. But if KU does continuously play like this, it's going to be a long Big 12 season and a year where you have two, like you said, 2 guys that are National Player of the Year, but couldn't win a game that UCF had no business winning.
It's pathetic.
That's most of my thoughts on this right now. Anything else you guys want to touch on? Or, I mean, again, KJ had a really good first half and second half, and he's kind of our X factor. If you can get him going, things open up, because now he's a menace in the paint. And second half, UCF, man, they just locked into that zone and forced tough shot after tough shot, and KU obviously shot themselves in the foot. I think at one point, I was counting it, they went like 5 out of 6 possessions in a row with a turnover over like a 3.5-4 minute stretch, and obviously you can't have that and expect to win.
I'm just going to say, if you value your mental health and your sanity, do not go on Twitter, and specifically, do not go looking for K-State tweeting about us losing this game after the way that they played UCF. I mean,
yeah, I wouldn't give them any K-State fans any time of day. We know what their program is,
obviously, but they are having. I don't even have to look. But they are having a field day right now with us.
Probably.
You know what? It's like that's such like K-State Twitter to have a field day about
their national
us.
championship, so we can.
They're not even in the game. They're not even in the game, and they just love to laugh at us.
But hey, I threw this stat out to Spencer before we hopped on here, because I thought this was kind of crazy. So maybe this is another silver lining, that college basketball as a whole is just better this year. In the season so far, there's been the top 15 teams. I don't know if this is the current 15 teams or if this is the average top 15 teams. I don't know the exact order of this, but the top 15 teams on the road against unranked opponents in this season so far are 16 and 19. Wow. So even the cream of the crop are losing games on the road in similar fashion. Of course, we saw 4 of the top 5 teams drop in the last 48 hours. So maybe that's just a sign that college basketball as a whole is on the uptick, and there's a lot of good teams out there, or teams just really know how to play up to competition versus, playing what they normally do. So I don't know. That might be another silver lining. At least everyone else lost. So from a polls perspective, if we drop, at least everybody else is dropping. But what's frustrating to me is we were sitting here the last 24 hours going, welcome to the Big 12, Houston. You finally get tough competition, and you can't win a game.
And then we drop it.
And then we drop it. So that sucks. That's going to be fun. But we knew this was going to happen every year. Outside of like the 07-08 team, every KU team has had that game. You're like, how on earth did we lose that? How did you blow a 16-point lead going into the second half? And, at the end of the first half and going into the second half, how do you blow a 16-point lead and then just never really get back? So very frustrating loss. Don't want to dwell much longer on it because, like we said, we got a quick turnaround. Oklahoma coming in this weekend in the fog. They are currently playing UCF, TCU, and it's closing out in the first half. And Oklahoma's up 32-31, so we'll be monitoring the rest of that game tonight and see how they do. Thankfully for us, though, Oklahoma has to come on the road, but they're going to be up for it. It's going to be a crappy day of weather, cold, snowy, icy. So there's no reason why, the fans shouldn't still turn out and bring some heat inside the arena and get us pumped up, because you can't start off Big 12 play 1-2. You got to start off 2-1. I was hoping we'd be sitting here talking about 2-0 heading into the weekend. because now we're about to enter, like we talked about, we're about to enter the first tough stretch of the schedule with some of our Oklahoma this weekend, and then of course the game we always struggle at, which was my gotcha game, which was the Oklahoma State game next week, and then you got rest of the Big 12 on the horizon. So tough one here. The Hawks drop. That's all the thoughts I have. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we get out of here?
Yeah, well, I feel like I'd be remiss not to touch on last game real quick, because our number one fan, Fran Fraschilla, the wonderful Fran Fraschilla, is once again doing absolutely nothing to mask his contempt towards the Jayhawks. So I just want to clarify any confusion. If you elbow somebody or you flail your arm and it hits them in the face, that's a flagrant foul.
Thank you.
Every single time. And there's no argument. I see no argument against it. Like, I am baffled that this is not 100% consensus. That was a flagrant foul. It's unnecessary content. It's not intentional. It's not like Uday's not boxing. I know he's not trying to punch anybody. That's a flagrant foul. In high school, in college, in the NBA, in middle school, in Pee Wee basketball, it's a flagrant foul. Jay Wright said it perfectly after the game. He said it perfectly. He broke it down to a T. Go watch that clip. But Fran, and for anyone else who doesn't think somebody flailing their arm around isn't a flagrant foul when the ball's in front of them, stop watching basketball. Stop, because you don't get it. I'm sorry. That had me so heated that was even remotely controversial. Like, we can talk about Hunter almost.
I think it has to
do
do
game.
all with
That's
the
fine.
timing of when it happened.
Sure,
that's the only reason why
huge
people are
momentum
mad.
shift at the end. But I mean, I think the other thing that, again, I'm not defending the play at all, but it was a completely inadvertent. Like, it looked like he didn't look like he was trying to find and make contact. So it was completely inadvertent.
Oh yeah.
But
Definition
this
of a
is,
flagrant
in
one.
this era of sports, it's all about player safety. So anytime a shot like that, well, and you can probably thank Draymond Green for a lot of this too. Talk about a bum loser that we should never talk about on the podcast, because he's trash, garbage, dirtiest player of all time. That actually might be a fun episode. Let's go through the top 5 dirtiest players in the NBA right now. Draymond Green, Grayson Allen, Marcus Smart.
I think Smart just flops a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's dirty anymore. Okay, yeah, we'll say that for another day. But you get the point.
That's a good one.
But an inadvertent play, it's a bam play that KU gets the better of the whistle. In all honesty, KU probably should have lost that game. I'm being completely honest, looking at the stats. Hunter had a great game, but again, I think it was a game that your backcourt didn't really bring you much offensively, and we got to me that's not the biggest. I don't know if it's necessarily the biggest question mark moving forward. Because DeJuan still scored 10 last game, but he got to the free throw line a few times. DeJuan's got to give you something offensively. He's got to look to score, and El Marco's got to figure out how to be a secondary ball handler and drive the offense. And this is where I wanted to have this episode go, was, did Furphy finally overtake the 2 spot? And is he deserving of the starting spot? We saw El Marco come back out to start the second half and play a majority of the second half because Furphy struggled defensively. And I think that's why El Marco's still in there, because he's quick enough defensively. But to me,
I agree.
I want to see El Marco come off the bench some and
be
intent. I mean, it's tough now because we're in Big 12 play, but I think he should come off the bench with the intention of actually running the offense from his perspective versus being the secondary guy on the court with DeJuan. But that's probably for another day. We'll have to see how that goes. Obviously, Bill Self's going to play DeJuan as much as possible, and he should, because DeJuan is one of the best point guards in America. He's just got to find a way to impact the game offensively himself more than just distributing the ball. And again, tonight was another game where he had not his best decision making, some poor shot selection, forced a few things, forced a few bad passes. We already talked. Kevin McCullough had a bad game passing wise, just a lot of unnecessary passes, forced throws that just, even Hunter, there was a few times there that transition coming back up the court off the press break where they throw it to Hunter at the top of the half court. He wasn't even completely ready for that and bobbles it, and it gets stolen right away. Thankfully, they threw it away immediately, so we got it back. But just a sloppy game. We got to figure out how to control the ball and just maintain possession, because you cannot win games going 18 turnovers. KU came into this game averaging about 13, and they have 36 in back-to-back games. And if they don't figure out how to cut that out, then Oklahoma is going to be another team that comes in and takes advantage of that. And maybe they get a call or two go their way, and it's another flip-flop game at the Fog this weekend. But try to end on a little bit of positivity. The KU women's basketball team is crushing Baylor right now, so that's fantastic. And they're going to go on to
All
the
right.
right. So
I heard
great
Holly's
for
having a
them.
great game.
KU football's got a lot of things going on in the transfer portal. I don't know. Did you guys? I saw this. Did you guys catch JD's? I guess podcast interview he was on. Never heard of it, but he kind of. It was like 5 questions with him or whatever, 25 minutes, and he talked a little bit about his injury and how odd of a year it was for him. He's like, guys, the injury was real. It was weird to see he said the fan base turned on him. I don't think that's accurate at all. I think the fan base was just more mad that there was no info out there. There was literally nothing on the injury itself from him or from KU. It was just hush hush. So it was kind of good to see him open up and talk a little bit about that and basically reconfirm that, hey guys, I'm here. I have no intentions of going anywhere. Never had any intentions of going anywhere. And as long as I'm healthy to play, I'm 100% bought in. So that's exciting. But yeah, we got wild card weekend this weekend for football. If you have you NFL fans, you can go check out my last episode I had with CJ and Chris. We talked about the playoff schedule, went over the recap of the season. We'll also have a Chiefs preview this weekend too. So a couple episodes this week, and then we'll see what else we can start squeezing in with more KU basketball. NBA talk and all that, Spencer, we still need to talk some NBA. I know we haven't, but we're coming up on our favorite time of year in trade season and the trade deadline, so we'll probably do some of that coming up. So if you haven't yet, you're watching here on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. We'd greatly appreciate it. Trying to push over 300 in the next week or so. Would love for you guys to help support us. And again, as soon as I can get some merch out and figure out how to get that lined up, still having some logistical issues there, we'd love to share that with you guys. But give us a follow on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at KCSA Pod. And of course, here on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you guys stay up to date for all the future episodes. And we hope you guys continuously come back. So that'll do it for tonight. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Rock chalk.